Hey, hey, hey! It's the Vintage Animation Nerd coming at you with music and fun. If you're not ready, you're going to learn a little something before we're done. It's my top 10 favorite episodes of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. In honor of Black History Month as we come to a close here with Black History Month. In 1972, Bill Cosby and Lou Scheimer over at Filmation helped create Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. They became a Saturday morning staple on CBS. Reruns moved to NBC and USA around the late 80s. There were multiple seasons of Fat Albert and 3 different iterations. There was season 1, which was on Saturday mornings. It was Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. That lasted about 4 seasons. There were the New Adventures of Fat Albert. There was the New Fat Albert Show. That lasted for about 3 seasons and replaced the musical segments with the Brown Hornet. And finally, around 1984, they made 50 new syndicated episodes, simply entitled, I think it was The Adventures of Fat Albert. I'm going to look this up now. Yep, The Adventures of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Well, I'm going to try my best to pick a few from each different iteration, maybe even from different seasons, to form my top 10 list. Again, Vintage Animation Nerd, top 10 favorite episodes of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. We're going to have a good time here today. Get ready. Number 10. Watch that first step. Fat Albert's new one-off friends, Marcus and Michelle, have to cope with the facts and deal with their own personal shame over the facts that their dad is struggling with the family illness. Fat Albert's always there to help out a new guest star, even if they are only around for 1 episode. So he helps his new friends by saving their lives and helps them to understand their father a little better, and only asks one thing in return, in payment, is that Marcus and Michelle go to a little meeting to meet some young adults exactly like them and learn a little bit more about what their dad's going through. This came from the new Fat Albert show. It was its final season. It was the final episode of the final season of the new Fat Albert show. It probably wasn't the best written example of an episode of Fat Albert, but the topic just hits a little differently for me personally. Number 9. Number 9. Rebop for Bebop came from The Adventures of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids in 84. Yep. And it was a very welcome return to the Junkyard Band segments that I had always preferred over, say, let's say, the Brown Hornet, or somehow even worse, Legal Eagle. But it was a welcome callback to the Junkyard Band in Rebop for Bebop, as Fat Albert and the kids have to get the old band back together to win a music contest, with a little help from a new friend of an older generation that the kids have to learn to accept and to respect. I mean, he's eventually going to end up trying to help them with something. I mean, you know. But yeah, Rebop for Bebop was a nice return for the Junkyard Band. Number 8. Full time. Class elections have hit the school, and Baron and and there are two fellows running for class president that are very much playing race issues, saying that one side doesn't care about Hugo and Baron. They're playing race politics with one another, against one another, claiming that the other side does not care about the other. Well, Fat Albert and his buddy Margene have a little something to say about that. They have a little something to say where campaigning for a school presidency should have something to do with school issues. And for just one bright and shining moment, the kids all agree, and for all of one episode, Fat Albert and his buddy Margene are co-class presidents on a mixed race ticket to bring the entire school back together over student issues. That was a good episode. That was a nice one. Number 7. I'm gonna go with Mr. Big Timer, in which Fat Albert's new buddy Franny Bates is constantly giving the kids gifts or treats or free rides on his brand new motorcycle because he can afford them thanks to his brother Muggles. What does his brother Muggles do exactly? Well, he takes good care of Franny, who then takes good care of the kids in return for their friendship. Well, Fat Albert finally figures out what Muggles' new business venture actually is, and he turns him in as the only kid to do the right thing the entire episode. Franny's understandably a little shaken up right now that his brother was called to task for his business ventures, and claims that now the kids aren't going to like Fat Albert anymore either. Well, the Junkyard Band, the Cosby Kids, including Rudy, are a little smarter than that. Even Dumb Donald is a little smarter than that. And they all understand Fat Albert to be the hero that he actually is. That was number 7. Number 6. Number 6. I think I'll pick the prankster from the first season of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Now the idea behind the prankster was tried to be repeated in The Joker under the Adventures of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids about 12 years after the prankster aired. Well, this time the Cosby Kids one-off friend is a practical joker who's not all that practical. And he has to learn that lesson the hard way. Of course, Rudy thinks he's just hilarious. Because, well, he's Rudy. And they call Dumb Donald the stupid one. Well, eventually their new pal, Mr. Prankster, finds out the hard way that practical jokes are not always so practical. Number 5. We're on the home stretch here. I'm going to pick Cosby's classics. The Cosby Kid. Well, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids are about to watch the Brown Hornet when their cable goes out. So did Bill Cosby's. And now we have a little episode that mixes animation with live action, wherein the Cosby Kids are sitting in front of an adult Bill Cosby. This too is supposed to be Bill Cosby as a teenager. And the adult Bill Cosby is entertaining the kids over tall tales. The tales of Paul Bunyan and his oxen, or the tales of Pecos Bill. Yeah, that was a good episode. It blended seamlessly live action and animation. Now, for those of you who are no longer such a fan of even Bill Cosby's earlier works because of who Bill Cosby turned out to be, this could be a difficult episode to look back at through the eyes of innocence. But it was a good episode. Number 4. Fat Albert meets Dan Cupid. Season 3 of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, the first iteration of Fat Albert and the... Anyway, this wasn't the last time that Fat Albert fell in love with a pretty face. But the moment he met Laverne was the first time that he fell in love with a pretty face, and it definitely hit him the hardest. All the kids are initially drooling over Laverne. It's Fat Albert who has it the worst. Leading up to the point where she finally has to set him straight. That she will always value him as a friend. Not more, not less. A friend. Well, not more, possibly less if he doesn't get the message this time. That's always a tough lesson to learn. I imagine it's not an easy lesson to have to teach. So, there you have it. Number 3. Double Cross, the new Fat Albert show. The gang's new friend, Melinda. I think it's Melinda. Can no longer really hang out with the Cosby Kids because she has a new group of friends who do not like African American people, or Jews, or Catholics, or Hispanics, or anyone not born in America, let alone anyone born white. Apparently her new buddies in the Double Cross have at least some use for a white female. I would think they'd be a little narrow-minded for that either. Anyway, they order her not to hang out with Fat Albert and his friends. She promptly complies, and she accompanies the Double Cross on a few of their escapades. The last of which, Fat Albert has to save them just before they can finally get arrested for what they're doing in their last escapade. Which shows one more time how big of a person Fat Albert is. Versus the members of the Double Cross who were ready to abandon their own leader up hanging from a piece of scaffolding because he was foolish enough to go up there and try to vandalize a painting. Or vandalize the Catholic Church, excuse me. Bill Cosby cuts in at least once to point out that Fat Albert has made a mistake in not waiting for emergency services or the proper authorities to go up there and do what he's about to do. But at the same time, that is one more testament to how big of a person Fat Albert really was, even as a young teenager. Number 2. Creativity, Season 1, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Creativity was the episode where they formed the Junkyard Band. And it was a great episode. I loved it. It was all about the kids having to make do with what they had to make musical instruments out of junk they found in the junkyard. Hence, they formed the Junkyard Band. That led to the original show closers for the first several seasons of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. That was pretty great. What was that, number 2? It was. Honorable mention. Honorable mentions. I gotta talk about at least one of these specials, and I would think it would be the Christmas one that I grew up watching. The Halloween special is probably the best of the bunch. The Halloween special is probably worthy of the honorable mention. Which brings us to such honorable mentions as, the bully, the tomboy, the bully, the tomboy, Sweet Sorrow, Gang Wars, Gang Wars probably came the closest to making the list. The Birds, the Bees, and Dumb Donald. We All Scream for Ice Cream was a pretty good episode. Reading, Writing, and Rudy was a good episode. Number 1. Number 1, The Adventures of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Original air date of October 20th of 84. Busted. Now on October 20th of 84, I was about 40 days old. I was not watching Fat Albert. And I don't recall this episode being in a huge hurry to be picked up by USA. Or NBC, for that matter. I first saw this episode on DVD. Immediately before the episode even starts, Bill Cosby comes along with a mature language warning and mature content warning to sit down, watch this episode with an adult. You watch the DVD, and there is a glaring moment of silence where a mature piece of dialogue would belong. I eventually saw the actual episode on YouTube, the full episode. Busted was... it was heavy. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids are now confronted with a one-off friend who has stolen a car and is ready to take them on a nice little trip to the city pool in a hot vehicle. Of course the police catch the stolen car. They also understand that Albert and his friends had no idea that it was a hot vehicle. But in order to scare them straight, the police officers also take Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids to a prison for the day so that they can speak to some of the inmates and so that they can learn firsthand what exactly the problem is with breaking the law. Of course, we never see this one-off friend ever again because right now he's behind bars. And out of all of the Cosby Kids' extras, random extras that stay for one episode at a time, we can kind of understand where this guy went. It's pretty much universally understood what happened to him, what his fate was. This has been my top 10 favorite episodes of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Or The Adventures of Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Or The New Fat Albert Show. This is the Vintage Animation Nerd. Alright, thanks for joining me today. Hey, 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 have yourselves an awesome day.